Hi everyone, welcome to Tom's Manshed. Now today's video is part one of two. I was going to do it all as one video, but realised it was going to be hours long probably. I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible, but you know me, that usually waffle on and on, so even this could be quite long. But what it's for is just to show you some of the things you can print on a 3D printer. If you're new to 3D printing, or you're thinking of getting one and you're wondering, well, what the heck can I actually print on it? This is the video for you, or I'll try and make it as informative as I can. Now, like I said, all I'm going to be doing is basically showing you things I have printed, just some of the things I have printed on my printer, and the previous one as well. I can only show you some. Some have gone to family and friends. I've not got them all here. And a lot of them are useful objects, like, just for instance, a battery box there, and another box that holds my pine soldering iron. So I'm going to put the useful objects in part two. So all things, again, like this jar opener, I'll be going into detail, showing you them in detail and showing you how you do them in part two. But for this one, part one, I'm just going to make it on ornamental objects, little figurines, stuff that has no actual use other than it makes you feel good looking at it and it's fun to print, but it doesn't actually have a use. So that's what this one is about, part one. So when you first get your very first printer, you will get a file from the manufacturers on an SD card, and there's usually 4 or 5 different prints to print on that. Easy ones to get you into it. You basically just put it in the machine, select print, and it will print. It's all done for you, and they're easy little prints that won't take long, won't take much filament, and nothing technical about them. And usually the first one you'll get is that. As you can see, it's a little Chinese waving cat. And that's painted, obviously. That was just printed in white filament that you get with it. The little file I got that was with my very, very first printer, a Creality CR10. The current printer I'm using, a CR6, one of the included files is this little dinosaur. They're just usually little fun items that come on the card that only take a couple of hours or so to print and are dead easy. As you can see, it's sort of like fully articulated. It's all printed as one. You don't have to print these parts separately and put them together. It is actually printed like that and comes out like that. And as you can see, that was the very first thing I printed on this, and the quality is really, really good. There's no visible lines or anything like that. And that's, like I said, the very first thing I ever printed on this printer. But then you're wanting to get into other stuff. Now, I'm into sci-fi, superheroes, Marvel, DC Comics, films. Not so much the comics, but the films. So I do love my superheroes. So I've printed quite a few superheroes. I'll show them you now. These are them on the shelf just here behind me, and I'll show you some of the other objects I'll be showing you in close-up shortly, and then I'll show you some that I've done for my wife in her room. So let's have a look at them now. Okay, so this is my current printer. I'll be showing you that in detail because it features quite a lot of useful parts as well, but I'll be showing you that in part two as well. But this is most of the stuff I've printed with it. It's a CR6 SE, by the way. As you can see, I'm a big superhero, Marvel, DC Comics fan. So you can see all the characters there. I'm going to show you these close up very, very soon. But it's just giving you an idea what a small collection of the things I've printed. Some vases, some mainly ornamental objects. So this one here is a lamp. It's a what we call a lithophane lamp. If you've never seen a lithophane, they're very, very interesting. I'll be showing you that again in part two because it is a useful object. as is that skull. That's a dice roller, so as well as being decorative, it is a useful object as well. But yeah, this lithophane, you can see that's Thunderbird 3 on there, but as you turn the lamp on, they really show all the detail of the photographs. Again, I'll go into that in full detail. You can see the vase there and the flowers. It's all paints, of course, that I've used to paint the Marvel and DC characters. There's a lot over here. So yeah, that's just a small collection of the things I've done. And this is the wife's collection. This is her spot where she spends most of the day watching TV and YouTube and stuff. As you see, she's a big superhero fan as well, especially Groot. That little smiling cat is the very first thing I ever printed on my first printer. Another vase and flowers, of course. But yeah, I'll be going into detail again very soon. So as you saw there, in my little den here, Tom's man shed here, I've printed all these. These are them in close-up. I'm going to show you them revolving round. I've put them on my little revolving turntable and a little photo booth. I did a review of that. If you click up here, you'll see a review of this photo booth I've used with an LED in that you can put objects like these to film in. And I've done a little film of that. I'll show you them shortly. But a bit closer, there's Batman. And that came out really, really nice. As you can see, the printing quality on that is really good. Yeah, you can see the lines. You can see some lines and that. But when it's on the shelf, you can see the muscle shapes and everything are really good. And I'm going to show you in detail how you, well, what that looks like in the printer software as you print it. And I'll show you why this is such a really, really good design to print. And his mate Robin, of course. Again, you'll see close up to that a lot of artifacts on the cape because it's just one layer thick, this cape. So not quite as good a design. Print didn't come out as well. But again, on the shelf and from that distance, it looks really, really good. Well, I think so anyway. And I'll also show you shortly what supports do. This, as you can see, is Captain America. And again, you can see the texture in here on his chest. It's come out really, really well. Did have a bit of a mistake on this. You'll notice the line going across his shield where it shifted a bit. But this figure needs what you call supports. I'm going to show you shortly in the software what I mean by that. This bit here, because it prints from the bottom up, and when it gets to this, as you can appreciate, it's just going to be printing in mid-air. So we need something to support it. So in the software, you can select things called supports, and they're basically a very weak tower that bridges the gap here, or can go from the platform up, basically to give something for it to start printing on. When it gets to this level and it starts oozing out the filament, it's got to be oozing it onto something. So that's what a support does. And anything like that in mid-air and the hand this side, you would need a support for, otherwise it's just not going to work. It's in mid-air. And these supports then, once you've printed it, they just break off dead easy, and you just bit of sandpaper or whatever, and you get rid of them. But again, I'm not going to go into detail about doing supports. I'll skim over it shortly, very soon. But there's a mass of stuff on the internet on how to do all the technicalities of it. This is just to show you what you can do with the printer, and hopefully make your mind up to get one, which I thoroughly recommend. Don't be put off with how complicated things seem. Yes, it is a hobby that you're always sort of tinkering with. You'll get block nozzles. It's only a matter of unscrewing it and poking it out. You'll get other little sort of things. You're always doing some sort of maintenance, tightening screws up, making sure the belts are the right tension and that. But it's not rocket science, and you'll soon get used to it. You can get it once you've screwed it together, and most of them just come almost assembled. You just half an hour, you've screwed it all together. You bung the SD card that you get with it, press the button, a couple of hours later, you've got your little thing. And when you first print your first object, you can't stop watching it doing all its movement. It's really, really fascinating. Then you get your little thing and you're overjoyed at your first print and dying to print something a bit more elaborate. So yeah, I'll go through some of these things. So let's have a look at some of these Marvel and DC comic figures and some of the others close up now on the turntable in the photo booth, and see what you think of them close up. Like I say, a shop bought one, injection moulded, yes, will look perfect. Like an Airfix kit or something like that, yes, will look a lot better than you're going to get on a 3D printer. But as you'll agree, they still look good and they cost next to nothing to make. So let's have a look at them in close up now. Okay, so this was the very first part I ever printed on my very first printer. It's the sort of thing that gets bundled on the SD card with most printers. One of the Chinese waving cats, they always tend to put something like this on, because it's usually an easy print to print. As is this. I'm on Octopus tariff with me utilities, a company called Octopus, and so I thought I'd print a little pink octopus to match the furry one they sent me. And it is a trinket box, this, as you can see. The lid comes off, so you could print that any size you like. So you can scale up and down these figures to any size you like. That's one of the ones that came out the best. Some DC characters now, Batman of course, and that print came out really, really nice. The muscle tones and everything in that was great. There's no supports used whatsoever in that. And Batman, sticking with the DC characters, that's Batman's partner Robin, of course. I didn't paint the eyes very well on that, but eyes are exceptionally hard to paint. And a lot of artifacts in the cape and that, but on the shelf it still looks good. Sticking with the DC universe, Superman, of course. He's like hovering in midair, as you can see, supported on a rod at the back. But again, that came out reasonably well as well. There's a line there across the cape. Now this is Hellboy, and he's neither DC or Marvel. I believe it's Dark Horse Comics, I think that character's in. And reading up on Wiki, there was one crossover to the DC universe in one comic or something. So, but again, a character I really love, Hellboy. That was quite tricky. I printed two of them. First didn't come out too good. A lot of detail around the gun, and it's quite tall. Okay, on to Marvel now, and Spider-Man, of course. Quite hard to do all them black lines, and as you can see, I've made one or two mistakes on there. Got to use like a fine liner to fill them out. I've not finished that. There's still some touching up on that to do on Spider-Man, but the the print came out pretty well. And a little bust of Spider-Man and Venom. Venom, probably my favourite Marvel film, actually. I can't wait for Venom 2 to come out. It's not out as I'm making this video. But again, lots of busts on Thingiverse of superheroes if you don't fancy printing a full figure, including legs and that. And of course a lot quicker because you're only printing half. So with the Avengers now, sticking with Marvel. Captain America, of course. And again, the shield, the supports shifted on the shield, and you can see where it moved out of position. But generally, a really nice print. You can see the texturing on his chest has come out great. And really pleased with that. And Iron Man, of course. I did two Iron Men. This one, the stood-up version. I just love the colouring of Iron Man. And quite easy to paint, just the gold and red bits. And this is the other one. I think this is called the landing version, because he's just landed and smashed the ground. But that print's complete with the base. And sticking with the Avengers, there's this one, of course, the Hulk. Another quite easy one to paint. You'd expect it to be a black belt there, but if you look at most of the pictures, he's either got a purple belt or no belt at all, just the hoops, because it does appear to be all purple. But Yeah, so quite an easy one to paint. Now this was a really hard one and I've not done a brilliant job at it. Still with Marvel, but on to Guardians of the Galaxy. It is of course Groot, but really hard to paint I found. It's just different shades of blue, greens and browns, being basically a tree, but I didn't do a brilliant job. And this one is of course a baby Groot, which is really cute if you've seen the film. You know how cute he is dancing. One finger missing, got snapped off, but or it didn't print properly or something, but no big deal. And another bigger baby Groot. This print came out really well. There's quite a little bit of strings on there. I'm going to go over that with a heat gun. That'll instantly get rid of them stringing. But that's done on the 3-colour PLA that I did the skull dice shaker out of. But the colours didn't move too much in that. It stayed mainly pink. And of course from The Mandalorian, another baby Yoda holding his cup. So yeah, that's about most of the figurines I've printed so far. So where do we get all these figurines and anything else we want to print on our new 3D printer? Well, you go to somewhere like Thingiverse. Now, there are loads and loads of online sites that hold these files, and what you're after is what you call an STL file. Now, that's the file that your printer software and your slicer, which I'll explain shortly, use to print the object. Now, if you have got fantastic design skills, you can even design your own. That is way above my pay grade. I can't do that. So I just rely on designs people have already done. And there is thousands and thousands and thousands of them out there for, like I say, useful things for every figure you want going. If you're interested in something, I bet you pound to a penny there's something about it to print somewhere on the internet. So you go to a place like Thingiverse and you do a search. Like I'll show you shortly, it's not brilliant for searching Thingiverse. I think there is another site called searchthingiverse.com or something like that, because sometimes you type the most simple thing in and nothing comes up as a result, but you word it slightly different and it does. But as a depository for files, it's got hundreds and hundreds of thousands on, and that's where I got all the files that you've just seen there. So I'll show you now going on to Thingiverse and downloading a file, and then after that we'll show how you use it in your printer software. Right, so here we are on Thingiverse. I'll put a link down below to the site. I won't put a link to every file I'm going to show you in this video because there's loads, but I'll put a link to Thingiverse in itself, which is just one of the many sites that hosts STL files, which is what you'll need to do a print from. So it's a great site, Thingiverse, for a vast amount of stuff, but it's got an awful, at times, search facility. I'll show you an instance. If I type in here, CAPT America, it doesn't matter whether I'm in caps or not, but caps, Captain America. But if I type in an abbreviation of Captain America and do a search for that, look, there's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 or 6 files come up. But if I change that to the full word, Captain America, and do a search, there are loads and loads of files. This is just one of at least 4 full pages. So you've got to try a few different searches if whatever you're searching for doesn't come up immediately. But that's the one I picked for the Captain America I printed. And here's one of this is the one I did for my wife of Batman. Now, there are some great figures designed really well for 3D printing, and some that are a bit more tricky. This Batman, the way whoever's designed this has done it really well. You don't need any what you call supports. Now I'm going to show you shortly in the software what supports are. This figure, this Batman one, didn't need them, but this Captain America does. So I'll show you what I mean by that shortly, but once you've found the figure you want, you click on here, download all the files, and then your usual download thing comes up. I'm on Firefox, so the thing saying save comes up there. If I click that, you'll see it says downloading files in 3, 2, 1, 0, and then you click save here and save them to your usual folder. Okay, so we've downloaded our file from Thingiverse, and Thingiverse isn't the only place to get STL files. There's loads of others. A lot of them do charge. Most of the stuff on Thingiverse is free of charge. You can voluntarily donate to the designer should you choose, but you don't have to. All the stuff I showed you, it was free to download. There are other sites which charge a fee, and they're usually for the really intricately designed ones. There's some unbelievably highly detailed models and come with more intensive instructions on how to print and how to set it up and that. And of course, understandably, the designers do charge a small fee for that. So there are them sites if you like, but I tend to stick to Thingiverse. So we've downloaded our file from there now. Let's see now how we put it into the software for the printer. Now, as I've mentioned, I'm not going to give you intense instructions on how to set everything up, extrusions and nozzle diameters and temperatures and things, but I will briefly mention on here what supports are. And as I showed you before, I'll put it back on the shelf now, as I showed you before, the bit under Captain America's shield does need a support, so I'll go into that and explain what supports are in a bit more detail here. Okay, so as I've just mentioned, I'm not going to go into in-depth how to set up everything in your software, and this is called your slicer. Now, I use one called Simplify 3D, but one that usually comes bundled with the printer is a version of one called Cura. There are different ones. It's just that I use this one. The choice is yours. So I'm going to show you just what I mean about supports in this. Like I said, I'm not going to go into depth. There's 1,000,001 tutorials on YouTube showing you how to use this and Cura in great detail, and this is something you'll get after practice and everything. So this is just showing you how to get the object that you want to print into your piece of software, and a very short mention about supports and what they do. So what we'll do, we'll import first of all the Batman figure. So it's even called Batman Support Free. So we've unzipped that file we just downloaded from from Thingiverse into a folder, and there's different in that. There's 3 different Batmans. There'll be slight differences in the direction of the cape and things like that. So all we do is we click on that one. And for some reason it's really, really small. You'll find this sometimes, but if you find it so small, in this piece of software, you just double click on that and then set the scale there up to, say, 500%. So you can print them at any size you like, and all the X, Y, and Z, the height of it, the depth of it, the width of it is all here. So we've got it there to about the size we want. Now, as you can see, we don't need any supports on this, and by that what I mean is there is nothing that will start printing in mid-air. So if I go on to this, I'll just show you what I mean. If we click here on this one, prepare to print, and this shows you the sort of actual slices that your 3D printer will do. And if we we'll zoom in a bit, if we take it down to there, again, I won't show you how you do all this, you'll get used to this, but as we go up, that's the very first layer it starts printing, which is on the base, and you'll see there is nothing in mid-air. It's printing from the base up, and these 2 things here are sort of like moving out. It's quite capable of printing this overhang because it's already got something underneath, and then they get to there and they join and so on, but there's nothing actually starts in mid-air, and it's that way all the way up, which is you'll come across with some prints, and it's great if they do that because it means they don't need supports. And as you can see, that the cape at the back starts by touching the platform, the build platform, and it slowly moves up, and any overhangs are easily coped with by the printer. Nothing is starting in mid-air, so that is a great print, and like I say, you don't need supports. But if we show you now, the remove the Batman one and click import, and we'll do the Captain America one. So that one's coming in already about the size you'd probably want. But again, if you wanted it a different size, just double click and alter the size. But if we do the same on here, click prepare to print. And if we start from the base, so it prints the base first. This one contains a base as well. And no problem so far, everything has got something to print on. But look at that, as soon as the shield starts, as you can see, it's in mid-air. There is nothing under the shield. So if you can imagine the nozzle of your printer moving over here and starting printing, it's just going to fall down to the bottom, all the filament, because there's nothing to support it. It's just there in mid-air. So for what you've got to do for a model like this is add in supports, and on this one you can add them manually or automatically. Again, I'm not going into it in detail, but you would do something like this and add supports there for the shield. And this time when we click prepare to print, it's now, as we start below, you can see that grey bit there is a support ready for the shield. So it starts printing, and this is a weak sort of structure that's just strong enough to help support the filament when it first starts coming out. And these break off quite easily. And there, look, as we get to the shield, that shield has now got something to print on. So it's like a weak tower, if you will, that is holding that mid-air piece up, ready for the filament to start squirting onto there. And that will then go up to the top. Again, there, look, the hand over there, that's in mid-air. Now, I didn't do one for that hand, so that's not going to work either. So when you see that, you think, oh, I need one for the hand as well. You'd have to go back and then put a support structure there. Add new support, and you would put one under his hand, say there. And then again, this time when we click prepare to print, this time it's put a column there under his hand ready to print on. And you've got to do that for all sort of mid-air things, or big overhangs. Now there's a bit of an overhang of his chin there. You could put a support there, but you'd probably be all right on that without one, because it's just a tiny bit. But if you did want to put a support there, you could do the same there. It's only a tiny bit of extra filament and a tiny bit of extra time, but you probably would get away with his thing. But anything like in total mid-air or a big overhang out here, you would need these support structures, which, say, do break off quite easy. And then once you're happy with your print, and again, there are lots and lots of settings. These all look very complicated to begin with, but you will get used to them. We can set different temperatures, different speeds, different extrusions, diameters. Like I say, daunting at first, and I'm not going into that. It is just a very, very beginner's video showing exactly what you can do. And I've just picked supports as the one thing I'm showing you in this. And but yeah, once you're happy with that, and you've clicked here, prepare to print, you then just put it on this, and on this it's save toolpaths to disk. So you'd click on there, you'd tell it where to save it, put your SD card in, call the file whatever you want, click save, and then you take your SD card out and take it over to the printer, and then you can do your print. Okay, so as well as stuff like that, figurines, little models, there's all sorts of other stuff you can make. Like I say, it has of no use, this, but I am interested in aviation. I love, for me, aircraft and anything to do with aviation. And this is a file I found on a radial engine and how it works. So, as you see, there's a thing there representing crankshaft. And as you turn it round, the little pistons, whoop, that one's come disconnected. So they do things like this. But yeah, as you see, and it shows you, this con rod has come off, as you can see now, but it'll soon clip back on there. But it shows you how a radial engine works. The stuff like this is printed again in one go. They're not parts that you need to put together. It prints it as this, and then you might be left with a little bit of plastic up here that you just got to trim away with a knife or around here, and they all revolve round inside each other like that. There's tons of things like that. If you're into puzzles, there's this stuff like this. There's a much more elaborate secret boxes to unlock, but this, you've just got to give it to somebody and ask them to unlock it. As you can see, it's locked now, the lid. Obviously you wouldn't force it, you'd yank it open, it's only plastic, it's going to break and open. But all you do is, if I can remember, is you slide that way, which enables you to slide that bit open. When that bit is open, this drawer comes out here, which was on a spring, but now isn't. So that opens, revealing a key. But where do we put that key? Well, again, if you slide these two both ways, that allows that to open, and you slide down that, put the key in, and unlock it, and your treasure's in there. So, great little gift for the kids, stuff like that. But that's printed in multiple parts. I'll put that together shortly. Here's a little cube. This came out really good. If you look at the quality. Now, I did this on my previous printer, my CR10, and I've got all the names of my grandchildren in there. It was a file where you can select your own names. So I've got Lily, George, Bobby. I did this one for my daughter Claire. That's all her kids on it. I did another one for my daughter Nikki with her son Oliver on it. But it's like a block you twist round, and you can see all the gears. And that's as smooth as silk to operate. So there's that. Some more that I showed you earlier on the shelves. The decorative things are these vases and flowers. They get a lot of imperfections, as you can see, in that didn't turn out very well at all, that rose. The yellow one was okay, and the iris was okay, but something went wrong in that, so I'll have to redo that. But the vase itself is in a see-through translucent purple, And the way you print a vase on the software, it has a vase mode, and it's a single layer. The whole thing. Normally, when you're printing just a a normal object like this, it's got an infill of that honeycomb texture and a twin outer wall and 3 layers or whatever you've selected for the base. But on a vase, it's just one continuous circuit all the way around, so it's just one layer. So printed on a normal standard nozzle like this, it's quite thin and they are very, very delicate. So sometimes it's advisable, again, increasing the nozzle size to make it a bit tougher and a bit more resilient. But that turned out well, and that's held up well. It was one of the first ones I did. So all roses, red, white and blue roses in a translucent red vase. This one did start splitting. You can see I've had to sellotape round the top, but just to give you an idea, I'll probably bin this and print another one. But there's different roses like that. That's not as authentic as some of the other ones, but that carnation is quite good, I think. It's quite realistic, but all them are different. Then you can get much more authentic looking leaves and stems as well. Now there's also loads and loads of different filaments. You can get just the normal PLA that all these items have been printed on, but there's all sorts of stuff you can get. Some of my favourites are the silky colours. These. Now that's what I've printed the parts on me 3D printer itself from. It's like a silk PLA they call it, and you can get that in all sorts of colours: copper, silver, gold. This is a gold, yellow, green, blue, everything. Another one is this multicoloured one, and as you can see there, as I hold it up, as you look down, it changes as it goes along, as it uses it up. It goes into different colours. The disadvantage of this is that you've got to print quite a biggish object to get that colour change. If you're only printing little things like that, it might be all in the sort of same colour shade of purple before it gets to the blue or something. So you've got to print something big that's using quite a lot to get through a few different colour changes. And here is one item I did, and this is one of my favourite ones. I'll feature this in part 2 as well, because this has got a use, although it's not a vital use, but I just love this. And that was printed out of that 3 colour. And if you look at the detail, all them zigzag lines on the skull, they're part of the print there to represent cracks in a real human skull. But again, you can sort of just see the layers, but it's really, really good quality. And it's printed fantastic. That was a long, long print. And as you can see, it started in the pink and then sort of became the blue and went up to green and finished off in the brown. So it goes through about 4 colours there. And like I say, it's a dice roller. The bottom of it, you can see the internal structure. That's your infill. You can see that there. Most models use that inside. Again, you can select 10%, 20%, whatever, depending on your needs. But like I said, this is a dice roller, so even though I'm including it in this decorative part, as you can see, as you put it down, it rolls the dice. It goes around loads of lumps in here, which always, hopefully, will give you a different number. 3, 6, and so on. So again, that's one of my favourite things. That took about 20 hours, I think. 20-hour print that. Some prints take ages. The longest one I've ever done will be shown in part 2. It's just a holder for the pots of paint you can see behind me. That took 27 hours, I think. The longest in total I'll be finishing off this video with, my favourite ever, that starship you see in the background there. But that wasn't one continuous print, it's made up of multiple items, but I'll show you that soon. So another filament you can get is some special, there's some pretty good specialised ones, is this glow in the dark one. So as with any glow in the dark stuff, you hold it up to charge it to the light, and then it radiates blue or green or whatever. You can get different colours when it's dark. It does tend to wear off a bit. Once you've printed the object and do it, it doesn't respond as it used to. Seems okay while it's still on the reel. And here's a bit I filmed earlier on with my phone, just charging it up with a torch and putting it in the dark bit under my desk. So let's have a look at this now. So apologies for the vertical bars because I filmed this on my mobile phone, but as you can see, I'm just charging it up, the glow in the dark filament, with a normal LED torch. And there you see, in the dark, that big chunk where I held the torch is glowing quite blue. So yeah, quite effective from new, but once it's printed on an object, it does seem to wear off quite quick, but quite a novelty. So as you can see, that's reasonably effective. And another one is this one, which is a heat reactive filament. Changes temperature according to the heat. Now yesterday it was scorching hot. Let's look it up. It's 29 in here now. Yesterday it was the high sort of 30s in here. It was that hot. I've no aircon in my shed, and it turned its white. But once it gets warm, this I'll heat it up with a hairdryer just to show you. So as we heat this up, I think you can see it there, turning white. And again, on an object, that's something I've printed with it. As we heat it up, it goes white. So that's quite a fun material to make an object out of. And possibly my favourite is this one. This changes colour under ultraviolet light. So as I'm holding it up now to my LED light, you can see it's still staying white. But watch this now as I open the shed door. It's 5:30 as I'm filming this, and it's still daylight. I'm just going to hold it out in the sun. So I'm just holding it at arm's length now in the sun. So it is 5:30 at night, so and you can see it's gone a lovely shade of pink. When you do that at noon, like yesterday, I tried it at noon, when there's tons of UV radiation around, it goes even deeper pink and just immediately. But as you can see, it's fading back to white again already. One that I did try that I didn't have too much success with was a marble effect, and that was a white PLA filament with little black specks in it that give a very authentic looking marble. If you want to do a statue, make it look like marble, and they do look good, the finished products. But I found that after it'd been about an hour printing, it kept clogging the nozzle up. The little bits of black were clogging up the nozzle. I believe if I try a bigger diameter nozzle, it'll probably be okay, but I haven't got around to retrying that again yet. I got a full refund from the manufacturer. I think it was AMOLED, the same as this AMOLED, and they told me to keep it all as well, so that was good of them. And again, I will try it on another day, but that's one I didn't have much success with. But like I said, there's all sorts of filaments out there for you to try. But that's again just skimming the surface, giving you a quick idea what is out there. Yeah, like I say, part 2 will be coming up with the useful items. But before I go, I'm going to get my favourite, which is at the back of the room here. And it's this one, which I did on my first printer. Now there was a a sci-fi series here in the UK in the 70s called Blake's Seven. I think it was 70s, maybe 70s and over into the 80s maybe, called Blake's Seven. And it was really sort of cheap production, wobbly sets, weird looking aliens and uniforms and things, but the acting was fantastic, the storyline was fantastic, and the design of this spaceship, the Liberator, I think was fantastic as well. So I saw this on Thingiverse, and this took the longest. Like I said, not as long as a single print as the skull I just showed you, but this is printed in multiple parts. So you've got this bit, then you've got the two translucent green bits, and all these pods are all done as separate parts. And then I put these lights in it. I don't think you'll be able to see them much here, but yeah, just about see these flashing LED lights for the engine in the back. But I love the design of the Liberator spacecraft. I think it's one of the best designed TV spaceships ever. So I love that. And again, that is on Thingiverse, and took many hours to print in these multiple parts. But and then basically it's just gluing it all together like you would an Airfix construction kit or something like that. So that's that. Just put that back there. But yeah, the amount of time taken is a long time. Some of these prints take a whole day. Even little items like this can take, 2 or 3 hours to do some stuff like this. But when you work out the power consumption, it's only something like 175 watts maximum consumption when the heated bed is on and everything is on. When the heated bed clicks off on its stat, it will reduce a bit. So probably an average of 120, 130 continuous watts. So they're not expensive machines to run. And if you're on the cheap tariff sometime overnight, you can take advantage of that. As to amount of filament, they tend to come on 1 kilogram rolls like this in weight, and that will do you. One full roll like that will print just about all them figurines I showed you on them shelves, the top shelf, and all the DC universe and the Marvel universe figures. It'll probably go through about most of them on one reel, maybe not quite, something like 7 or 8 or something you'd get out of it. It's hard to tell. Some things take up lots and lots of filament, but it'll tell you on your software. It'll give you an approximation. It's usually miles out on the stuff the software I use in time, but it'll tell you how many meters of filament it will use. Some of the things, if you want to build like a big box, the other day I was wanting to build a storage box to hold stuff instead of buying a load of storage box for my paints behind, and I worked out like the biggest box I could print on the printer, taking advantage of the full height it'll go to and the width and the length, was going to take something like 3 days to print and nearly 1 kilogram of material. Well, it's about, could be like, cheapest you'll get sort of this is 12, 13, 14, 15 pounds, and into the 20s and 30s for the more exotic stuff. So it just wasn't worth doing something like that. But when you think for, say £15 for a reel of this, you can get all them Marvel figures and figures you probably won't get anywhere else. It does work out really, really cheap compared to buying shop bought figures, and there's all the fun of doing it. So I hope this has been of some help. Like I say, it's just been a skim over the surface. Once you get your 3D printer, you really get into it. It may not be for you, I don't know, but I would definitely advise you to give it a try, give it a go. You don't have to be. I hadn't a clue when I first started, but once you've done that first little object, after that you really do get addicted. And there are tons and tons of help groups out there on Facebook and tons of stuff on YouTube. So if you join one of them, there is always an answer somewhere to one of your problems. And yeah, they're well worth getting. So like I said, the next video I'm doing is all about the useful objects. A lot of people say, oh yeah, you can only print toys and figures with them and that, but no, you can print a lot of useful items, and I'll be going through them in more detail when I do part 2. So keep an eye out for that. I haven't even started filming that yet, so I don't know when that will be, but it will be along very soon. If you do like these videos and you want to subscribe, please click the little picture of the shed, and I will be up with the next one very soon. Thanks for watching this one. Bye for now.